Got some water here. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to Cinema Craptaculus, where we say a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one, just a lot easier to make fun of. This is Dave, and with me are my uncrappy co-hosts,
Stephanie.
And John.
It's a movie that feels as long as the title suggests and has a cast twice as big. It's Marvel's Eternals. Here's the rapid recap to catch you up.
Rapid recap! After the events of Avengers Endgame, the MCU reveals that there are ancient, superpowered aliens who have lived on Earth in hiding for thousands of years. Sent by the Celestials to eliminate the Deviants, the Eternals accomplish their mission in the 1500s. Without any Deviants to battle, they all go their separate ways. Now, in the present, they discover that a new Celestial will be birthed out of the Earth, like a bizarre Cadbury egg, but gooey with celestial, god-like power. Oh, and it will totally destroy the Earth. After being among humans for thousands of years, the Eternals must decide if they will continue being the defenders of humanity or turn on their masters to protect their new adopted home.
Eternals!
Eternals.
Okay, I'm going to say right off the bat...
Aw.
Thank you for joining us for another Cinema Craptaculus adventure. This has been John.
And Dave!
And Stephanie.
You know what? This movie has a pretty decent cast. It has
A cast of thousands.
A cast of thousands over thousands of years. It has, it's in color. There's good special effects. There's some bad special effects, but that shouldn't be too surprising. It had sound, like I could hear everything.
I had a hard time seeing everything. I don't know. I watched it on my phone, and it was very dark.
Oh, it was so dark. So dark. But not like muddy. DCU dark. It was just visually dark.
Yeah, like I had to adjust the bright. I was like checking to see if the brightness was too low.
And it wasn't even like dark, like a visual choice, like set at night. It's almost like somebody in post just flipped a knob and totally ruined the color correction, and nobody noticed it.
Yeah, they were like, what does this make everything look murky button do? Oh, we don't want to use that. Don't press that. Okay, I'm pressing it now.
Dave, I would back you up on this because now, granted, I probably saw the ratings back in the day. We're reviewing this a little after the fact, and I believe it was supposed to come out in order of release before Shang-Chi. Am I correct?
Oh, I don't remember.
Way back when, because I don't know if it was supposed to. It was after Black Widow. I know that, but I can't remember. So I don't think it matters because it's not like it starts out with the ending of Black Widow or whatever or Shang-Chi, but it definitely.
Or any of the characters we've met along the the years of Marvel movies.
Different thing.
Well, where do you want to start with this beast? Do you want to start with the plot, the characters? I don't even know where to begin.
First of all, I went into this knowing that it was going to be a ton of characters I wasn't familiar with. I mean, at this point, it feels sort of like, to me, it feels like the main show has concluded. There was the series finale of the Avengers as we know it, and now these are the spin-off shows because they feel like episodic television series to me. But to answer your question, John, first of all, who are the Eternals? Like, how many Eternals were there? Because I kind of lost count. I mean, I didn't keep the number in my head as I was watching it of how many people technically we were supposed to be following. So,
well, I will say this: when Gilgamesh died in the middle of the movie, I was like, "Wait a minute! I thought he was in the end of the movie," and I forgot that they go and get the guy who's like the engineer, like the Tony Stark of. And I was mixing those two up.
Thanos. What are their names? Okay, so there's Ajak, who is Salma Hayek. There is Cersei, who is Gemma Chan, who is luminous and lovely in this, of course. And it was great because I've been a fan of hers for a while, and I love that she's taken front and center role in this movie. But we have her. We have what's his name from Game of Thrones? I mean, actually, there's two guys from Game of Thrones.
I know, it's funny, and they have a scene together, and I'm sure it must have been fun on the set that day. Rob Stark. Madden. His name, Richard Madden. Not Richard Madden.
What is
his character
the guy who could control minds?
He's Achilles.
No, he's
Icarus.
not Achilles.
He's Icarus.
Icarus.
Yeah.
I get my
he
mythology mixed up.
Yeah,
Icarus.
He literally flies into the sun.
Yeah,
So
you got
I mean,
Angelina
I don't know how you could confuse
Angelina
that.
is not Athena, she's Thena, and boy, do they make a big deal out of losing that A.
Yes.
Are they worried about copyright getting sued by 2,000-year-old Greeks?
It probably was that was her name originally, and it's just been bastardized.
Nah, it's a Marvel
like,
thing, I'll bet.
4,000 years.
So there was like Makari, who was, hearing impaired, and then
And
there
a
was
speedster.
Yeah, then there was
Okay, so really what it
Druid
boils down to...
Druig, who looked like an old
Yes.
coworker of ours.
I could not understand what he was saying. I mean, I could. Okay, so I could understand what he was saying. Is he Irish? Because
Irish
his
or
accent
Scottish? I
was
think
like
Irish.
Okay, because I thought at first he was like Eastern European, and then I was like, wait, no, that's like a Brooklyn accent. Oh wait, no, he's Irish. What's happening? I mean, like, not that I have a problem with accents. I love accents. It's just that I could not focus on what he was saying because I was so distracted by his voice going in and out of different.
Oh, I felt like Jason Statham in Snatch, like every time Brad Pitt speak. Do you understand a word he's saying? It was like Pikey speak. Sorry, I just offended all the Pikeys. They're not even called that anymore, by the way.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Gypsies, here in these parts. I think
It's a
okay.
Snatch reference, I
Look,
guess.
here's the thing with all those characters is I agree with you, Stephanie. There is that sense of, and you feel it in the other Marvel films that have come out too, where they feel like they have to reference. There's like, how long do we have to keep referencing the snap and the blip? And they do that because I feel like they do want to tie themselves in, but they obviously want to chart their new course in Phase 5.
Well, they also have to do a couple of things. And first of all, I want to talk about the characters a little bit more. Because basically, this was the Justice League in the Marvel Universe blended in with some kind of iconic Marvel characters. Because you have Superman, you have Wonder Woman, you had The Flash, you had the engineer guy. Why?
Oh, like Batman?
Fastos, who was
Yeah.
kind of like a Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And Batman.
And yeah, because of the tech guy. It was just kind of interesting that they created this Marvel, and I don't know the comic book Eternals at all.
I don't either.
One of the things I don't know about the Eternals is their powers in the comic book, and whether they are a kind of representation of the Justice League, like a lot of modern day storytelling is, or if they all kind of have their own kind of like godlike powers. And in making this movie, they made it more about identifiable powers for each one, so that each one stood out.
Right. Well, I thought that it was supposed to be that they were in Jack Kirby's imagination, he wanted to make something that was evocative of the legends, the heroes of yore. And in the world of the movie and the characters, they were the inspiration for those mythological beings, right? Like Icarus was the legend of Icarus, and Athena was the goddess of war or something like that. And I was like, I mean, that's fine. I could figure that part out.
It seemed like they were also somewhat legendary and somewhat not. Like, I think Gilgamesh is a real legendary mythological character, and Athena, of course. But I don't know about like Fastos and Druig and Sprite, which seemed to be kind of a generic like London area mythology.
London, John?
Well,
London,
yeah, I mean, ... Yeah, and I think that, it did, in Marvel Comics, just like DC Comics, they go through their iterations where, they'll come in and an Ultimate line will come in and kind of redo them, just like in DC, they'll have like the New 52. And then this really would be an episode where, here we have Doc and S'more guest lecturing on it, because this really is kind of their domain and wheelhouse. But it doesn't mean that as moviegoers that we can't look at it at face value. I don't think we need to drag up Marvel history to sort of explain it. I think we kind of need to go into it as we did. Kind of, I don't think any of us were familiar with it. And I know a lot about Marvel, but this is an area I don't. And so I just had to look at it sort of with fresh eyes. And I felt like I think the director, we can talk a little bit about her later. I feel like, this was a very ambitious project, one that probably overlapped with elements of the pandemic in terms of its production. And I think that, it set out to do a lot of things, but I don't think it really succeeded in all of those things cohesively for a variety of reasons. And a lot of it was they're so busy trying to set up this mythology while they're trying to tell the story. You kind of have to either set up the mythology and then the story comes in the other film or like a sequel. This, they're trying to to tell a story while informing us of the mythology. And that's really hard to do in a movie.
Were
9 characters.
Were either of you kind of confused at all about what the story was, like what they were doing, and
all of it?
Like,
I was absolutely confused.
Yeah, I honestly, I watched this movie twice. And the first time I was not sober nor awake for most of it. And the second time was just before we started now, and I angrily watched it.
under duress.
He hate watched it.
I hate watched it. And I gotta say, like, I didn't miss a lot the first time around, but it was more clear. I think it made sense enough to me that, you know, like, there's a couple turns, like the Deviants becoming smarter. I didn't fully get.
That was just a thread that just got kind of like thrown away.
Cut
Like
out?
it was like, here's this character and he's evolving and now he's dead. The end.
Yeah.
Well, they were like these dogs that came together and would absorb the powers from the Eternals. I get that. That's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And then near the end, one of them kind of grows like a human head, and it looks like CGI from one of the second Harry Potter movies 18 years ago. And I kind of get that. And then so he's the bad guy. And then there's sort of a big twist where one of the heroes is kind of the bad guy, but then he's really got a point, and some of the other people join him because he may have a point, and I don't know who's really fighting who. And so, I think
like
it suffered from
Yeah.
it didn't have a core antagonist.
I
And
think that was sort of like the whole point was kind of to make it so that there were gray areas. Like the Deviants weren't actually evil. They were just what they were. Like, and they weren't, you know, they felt cheated too. And so they had a point. Like Dave was saying, he has a point. And then, you know, the traitor has a point. And the Celestials have a point. Everyone is okay. Everyone is confused.
Well, do you mind? So the idea is this: the Celestials plant seeds into planets to create more Celestials. They sent deviants to these planets to get rid of the apex predators, so that the intelligent life can grow. And once enough intelligent life is on the planet, it creates some kind of energy that Celestial can use to then be birthed from the planet, and that destroys the planet. And then the Celestial will go and make like 1 billion more planets. And redo this whole thing.
That will
Cadbury
then
eggs.
also be destroyed.
That will
Don't forget
also
the
be
Cadbury egg
destroyed.
analogy.
Potentially.
Don't forget the planet goo.
But so when they said that, I was like, okay, here's how you do this, Celestials. And I'm not like a big smart guy, but I just thought if you need a planet to have a certain amount of intelligent life evolved in a certain way, send the Eternals down and be like, here's the steam engine you need, and here's an end to all disease. Go forth and populate the planet, and in about 20 years, we'll reap it. But no, it's like, oh, let me think of the most convoluted way. Let me send apex predators. Oh, that didn't work. Let me send other predators to get. Oh, nope. Now they're killing us. What are we gonna do? It's kind of like when you put snakes in a what was that? Snake Day in The Simpsons.
Yes,
where
it's like
they couldn't get rid of the rats, so they brought in snakes, and then they couldn't get rid of the snakes.
They brought in gorillas.
This is a Simpsons
what
episode.
happens when we're overrun with gorillas? We wait till winter where they'll simply freeze to death.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm not going to break any new ground here because this was, on the internet and done very well. But the movie does just show how right Thanos was, and that his whole point was that life unchecked will be problematic, and it's even possible that Marvel could, later reveal that Thanos actually was doing all of that, killing half of life to prevent this from happening. You don't specifically hear him say that in the Infinity Saga, but it could be that that's what he was doing. And if anything, the Avengers and their snap just hastened it, as Ajax says. But it shows that Thanos had a point. And,
well, maybe maybe Harry Styles, who's his brother, will point that out in a future sequel. Say, hey, my brother wasn't half wrong, guys. And then he breaks into a song.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see that family
sugar.
reunion too, because I'd like to see how that whole Thanos family gets together and
Oh yeah, that would be
like,
an
what is their
awesome
Festivus
Thanksgiving
like?
special.
The airing of grievances with that family must be fun. I'm sorry, we keep having this argument, but no, we're not going to destroy half the universe. You don't get it. Yeah,
Already,
pass the potatoes.
5 times better movie than Eternal.
Hey, Craptaculars, we'll be right back. And now, back to the show.
Okay, so let's go back to the movie.
Yes.
And our experiences with me. Davey
Humphreys.
He didn't. You clearly didn't like it. But what worked for you? I mean, well, okay, not you, because you already said you liked that it had sound.
Yeah,
Sean.
No, I was going as I was watching it this morning. I was like, "What do I like? What can I say positive about this movie?" And I think there's some things I'm going to say negative about this movie too, because one thing that drove me nuts was at the beginning of the movie when it's like 500 BC and they're all like helping humanity out, which is fine, but they're talking like it's 2022. You know, they're like, "Hey man, why are you sitting so close to me?" And I'm like, but it's 550 BC and that's all you know. You're not like from the future and came to the past. You're robots or aliens or whatever, and you're in the present, and all you know is Earth. So why aren't you either acting like gods or talking like people of the time? And then when you make that jump to like present day and everyone after they've all split up and went their separate ways, which by the way, they went their separate ways on Earth, but they can go anywhere at any moment, and they're like, we didn't see each other for 5,000 years. Really? You didn't see each other for, it was 2,000 years, but still, come on, guys. That's so stupid.
Wait, so you
no
think
one just like popped over to Alaska and was like, hey, Ajax, what's going on? Yeah, just coming over for coffee.
None of them thought to like hide out
husband.
on the moon just to get away?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, could they? I mean, I guess, what's his face Icarus could have.
Yeah, he could have flown by. And Sprite seemed to be able to teleport them. And the Speedster could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so what's good about this movie? I liked Gilgamesh a lot. I liked his character. I grew to like what Angelina Jolie was doing because I realized she's the only one acting like she's a god amongst all of them. Even though she was a little, they of course gave the biggest name some acting thing to do.
Yeah, time out, because I need an explanation here. What was her problem? What was going on with Thena? I first of all, if we separate the acting from it, because Angelina Jolie did fine in the movie, I had this feeling, however, that like it was almost like she wasn't in the movie to me. Like, I mean, I don't know why. Like, she had like 3 scenes and they were all the same scene. And then it was, like, and then she had a CGI fight. And I was like, okay, well, but let's go back to the character. What was the issue with Thena? Why was she attacking everyone? She would forget. Was she?
Well, in each of their incarnations, they've gone through this multiple times, and they go from planet to planet and they kind of start over and they don't remember it. Well, she was remembering all of the planets and all of the lives that have been lost. So it was this big giant, this wave of PTSD that's hitting her.
Yes.
And basically she gets zapped back into a non-violent mode when those memories are sort of stopped and pushed away. She's kind of like Logan a little bit, like Wolverine.
So,
or she has God's Alzheimer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, but what lives though? Like from other planets?
Yeah, they've done this over and over, and they just don't they don't remember it because.
So she's upset about the lives lost when the Celestials erupt from the planet.
So all of those other planetoids, or and they haven't even talked about whether this could have sort of enters into the multiverse. Do they cross over? Are there multiple Eternals and other? And we don't even want to go there at this point. But yeah, I think she's the one that's kind of the clue to all of it, because she's figuring it out first. Although Icarus knows what's going on, and he's not having a problem with the memories. He must be a bit of a psychopath.
He knows because Ajax told him, because she has the phone to what's his name, the big robot in the sky. Arishem. Yeah, like she's able to talk to him on the regular. So he told her like, hey, look, this is what's going on.
I just imagine her picking up a red phone.
Yeah.
Batman. It's Airmesh.
Arishem.
Gilgamesh
and Arishem.
I wish Arishem had Mr. Burns' voice. Who is that dead on Earth? Yes, it's Ajax calling you, sir. Who's that again? That would be better
if it was Homer trying to pretend to be Mr. Burns. It's like, hello, my name is Aramesh. I believe you have a letter for me.
Well, look, so
what's your last name?
One of the things I liked I like that we're going through this sort of periodic jaunt at the beginning through like we're in like early, what is it? Not
Mesopotamia.
Babylon. Mesopotamia
Yes,
and the the pyramid. So we're seeing sort of the early civilizations forming, and they're just walking around like rock stars in these tribes,
Yes.
Their fancy space suits because they're not even adopting they don't adopt the native dress for centuries later. So they're walking around and, oh, hey kid, you need that, that fruit? Here, I can turn it into, gold, or the speedster can go run and get you some fertilizer on the other side of the planet and bring it back and your crops will grow. And Gilgamesh is like, I come up with this. So they want to help these people. And then when they sort of have this fallout because you get to the point where, and I'm going to kind of move around here, but
sure.
What's his name? Who's the Irishman that we can't understand?
Druig.
So he finally gets fed up with the humans constantly trying to kill each other. And so I guess he's in like down in the
Amazon
the
or
Yucatan or something, and the Spaniard conquistadors are coming in and they're slaughtering, and the Mayans or whoever, and he says, I'm going to mind control them because that's his power. He's basically proto Charles Xavier, and he decides to just that portion of people fighting he decides to live with, and it sets off this argument with all of them, and the Beatles break up, right? And then it's
more
just
like
a
Chicago
mess.
because of the number of band members, but yes.
Right. Maybe it's more like the Eagles.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's Glenn Fry. I don't know. But yeah, I got to just say, so we started out promising for me in London, okay? I'm not just saying that. And in Camden Town, where I know where that is. I was just there that last weekend. They have the big fight with the first Deviant, and, what's his name? Rob Stark from Game of Thrones comes in, finds out that he's got Superman eyes, and Jon Snow's like, whoa, who's he? And I think my girlfriend is a god, and Gemma Chan's character, what's her name, kind of fesses up.
Cersei.
And, which is really weird because that's a Game of Thrones character. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
every time, like, Rob Stark, Icarus is saying, Cersei. I'm like, you didn't have any scenes with her. But, so I'm thinking, it's going to be sort of this romantic triangle. Nope. What's his name? Jon Snow. He's out to the end of the movie. We don't see him. And then they try to piece together what we think is this romantic relationship. And I think my biggest problem with the film was the broken narrative I don't think really worked. Because, first of all, very few directors can do it well. It's really hard to do, to sort of tell story in historical fragments. And I think this film just got so ambitious in wanting to sort of pull us along. And I just found that it was at the expense of the plot. And so they'd have to go into exposition because they're not showing us. They have to tell us everything. And then like you said, where's the plot?
Well, they were kind of doing intros for, it was like origin stories for every character in a way. Like, I mean, like we had that really interesting scene with Fastos and like the Hiroshima bomb, and then there was, like you had just mentioned, like Druig taking all the people from the Aztec War and then adopting their ways, or I don't really know what he did. And then like Kingo's whole like I'm a Bollywood star, and then you get like a whole musical sequence with him that goes on forever. And then I was like, okay, I understand. Like,
you're in Bollywood. We get it.
Like, let's just get on with this because this is some really long movie and there's still a whole bunch of characters we got to look at.
And a whole CGI fight we have to get.
Like a ton of them.
And along those lines about the characters, here's another positive thing I think they did well. And I saw this on the second time viewing it, is the idea that each character poses their argument for or against humanity's survival in the scenes that we're slowly learning their origin. So we start seeing the division between them, like, oh, I'm going to join up with Cersei and protect Earth, or I'm going to join up with Icarus and destroy and protect the Celestial. And I thought that was kind of it was informative and good, but it was a lot.
What do they do when they stop the Celestial? It's just literally erupting from the planet and it's frozen because Cersei is able to freeze it.
Which of course
are they just going to leave
these
it there?
And those land masses would set off tsunamis, tectonic. I mean, they were huge. These hands coming out of the water. It was kind of like Superman Returns. Like you're taking a chunk of the planet and bringing it to the surface. But that's sort of the technical stuff.
Isn't there lava underneath that? I mean, like like magma and stuff.
I kept thinking what's her name? Who was the island? Did you see Moana?
Yeah.
Like, you know who you are. Tafiti, was that it? you know, and
I think it was Te Fiti.
Yeah, and it falls down and turns into the island. That's what I kept thinking. I just want to talk a little bit. You brought up the actors and stuff, and look, these films are hard because, you know, especially during COVID, they are on a green stage, and so there's so much imagination expected from so many of these superhero movie actors that it's not even funny. I mean, if they even get costumes, it's a blessing because a lot of it is just the little motion capture type little suits that they CGI later. But I still felt that the direction of the characters, I felt like, for the most part, I'm going to just make a broad statement, I felt like they all looked like they hadn't had bowel movements in 3 days, or they had just asked their boss for vacation time and were declined. There just wasn't a whole lot to latch onto. If you like stoic, sort of emotional, vacant, my life sucks, or the world isn't worth saving, then this is your bag. But if you kind of want some sort of dynamic, and where you saw some characters try to do it, to Stephanie's point, like, what's his name, the Bollywood, it almost felt jarring, like, oh, that guy's trying to be funny, because they need to put a little bit of Thor, put a little bit of Scott Lang, put a little bit of Banner and Tony Stark humor.
Well, you know how it is, like, when it's like somebody's trying to have fun, and it's like, well, they have to do this, but then you notice that it seems like they're having more fun than you are.
Yes.
I kind of got like a glimpse of that, not to go too far back, but at the beginning of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, when Star-Lord is dancing around, and I was like, okay, they clearly had more fun filming this than I am having watching this. You know, that's sort of how it felt a little bit with the Bollywood number and with some of the, you know, some of the banter and stuff. I was like, okay, like the baby thing, you know, when Sprite turned Gilgamesh into like a baby in a onesie, and I was like, they're having more fun doing this than I am watching this.
Well, like, I think it might pay off later, because I think your Guardians example is a great example, and I probably felt the same way. But then if you watch it a second time, you maybe appreciate it more. By the time you get to the sequel, then those characters established. So the Bollywood joke might be something that pays off in the next movie, and as an audience member, you're like, oh, I get it. And so you've introduced the characters. It's always heavy lifting to introduce characters. I think there were too many characters for this type of movie. You know, with the Avengers, they didn't just start out with the Avengers. You started out with Iron Man. And then you had Nick Fury come in at the end. And then, you know, so they sort of pieced together characters. So by the time we got to an Avengers team up, it's like, wow, they're all together. Well, this is like, it's like the Justice League, to Dave's point, and they're all there in front of us, and I don't know half of them.
Yeah.
And it was kind of my criticism with the Justice League. There were some characters that showed up that hadn't earned their place, and I'm supposed to find them funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird because I think about, okay, for example, the X-Men, like 22 years ago, when that movie came out, they were already kind of a team, and Rogue and Wolverine came in. X-Men as a team or as a thing was already in the zeitgeist because of the cartoon, which I loved and still do. But like, that was, I think, the one time they could get away with like introducing a team of people and then having outsiders come in.
Yeah.
Okay. The other stuff now that we're talking about with MCU, that toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't duplicate that ever again. You can't have it done so well anymore, where you slowly introduce these characters, you get to love these characters on their own, and then you put them together. That's over. And I really feel badly for people who wish that they could have thought of that first, because you can't do it. And now with Eternals, they're in a position where they didn't do the X-Men way, which is introduce a character that is unfamiliar with the Eternals and has to join the Eternals. But they also can't do it the Avengers way, where they're all recruited and they don't know each other from Adam, and it's like, you know, now we have to get together.
In some ways,
that's an excellent point, Stephanie.
They tried to do that in the sense of like the getting the band back together montage, and they kind of use that conceit to kind of introduce each character along the way. So it's like, okay, we're gonna go get Kingo. Kingo, is that how you pronounce it? We're gonna get him, and we see a little bit of his world and his personality, and then they're like, okay, now we're gonna go get the speedster, who apparently just lived in the ship
the whole time.
The whole time.
And
I think it speaks to what John was talking about, the fractured storyline or
well, it was just the broken narrative of how
broken narrative
tell the story.
They were trying to get you invested in getting the team back together when you weren't invested with the team being together in the first place, and also introduce all these characters. So it was a lot of heavy lifting that was left on the warehouse floor, I guess.
Well, ultimately,
to bring the analogy to crappy end.
I was just going to say, say, ultimately, I think that, Stephanie's point that she just made was just perfect because you laid it out perfectly because the X-Men did it right, but it had a way of doing it. And I think with this film, they're attempting very big ideas about, humanity and gods. Is there, and just even the concept of gods and making planets and destroying planets is pretty heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. And, Marvel can get away with things like, we destroyed half the universe, but we're going to piece it back together. And that's just magic, and we roll with it. But then they kind of step into some rough areas, as we discussed in our other show with Loki, because when you talk about fracturing time and people looking at all of the timelines from above, then it's a whole other thing. And this film is in a tough spot because it has to shoehorn itself in the MCU. And so, ultimately you're going to have your post-credit sequence, and I don't want to spoil that if people haven't seen it. Well, I guess if you're listening to this, you might have seen it. But, there's a blade and a sword, and then you got to ask your nerd Marvel friend, like, so what
Kit Harington's Black Knight.
Yeah, well, I guess it was Mahershala Ali's voice.
You mean Mahershala?
Thank you. Sorry, Mahershala.
You're like Mahershala.
Yeah, all the names today are just
Mahershala Ali.
That was his voice. That was Blade. Nobody knows that unless you go ask around and you go, oh no, that's the sword. And they
already cast him. I mean, they already cast Mahershala as Blade.
Would it have killed them to actually show him? It's like really just an off-screen voice. COVID? What's going on?
Here's my biggest gripe about this is they have a very big concept that they could have gone hog wild on, but instead they just made a very straightforward standard movie. Now, we have the multiverse because of the Spider-Verse, because of that cartoon that just became a hit. And I think it was a game-changing moment where creators were like, oh, an audience can take a bizarre idea like this and follow it. And they could have really gone to some interesting places with this movie, and they didn't. It's just really, it's a Justice League movie with
ropey
a Cadbury
CGI.
egg as the hero.
Yeah. Ropey CGI monsters.
Well, and I don't think that they were just looking at each character necessarily native to their ancestral kind of cultural heritage. I mean, going back to
I don't think
Thena,
so, but it
got
helped
blonde
make it
Angelina
make sense.
Jolie, which is funny because her ex-husband, blonde Brad Pitt, was this Greek god Achilles. So now I'm going full circle.
Now you are losing it.
Right.
If we're talking about Troy, you are gone.
But yeah, I think that you're right. I think that they should. This film cried out to be very experimental, and that's not going to happen in the Kevin Feige Disney world. It's just it can't.
But this was their opportunity to do that, because I understand where a lot of the other movies need to be four quadrant movies and kind of like not challenge the audience too much. This was there was not a lot of money on the table to be lost here. They could have like pushed their storytelling forward. And I think Marvel or MCU and Kevin Feige and Disney are more less risk averse than we give them credit for. But I just don't think I think they could have taken more risk with it.
Well, they did take one risk. If you're watching this movie with a kid, as people were, there was a scene up front, a little flashback to Achilles.
Why do you keep calling him that? Icarus?
Icarus.
I don't know why. I think my Achilles heel is the name Icarus. Yeah. So Cersei and Icarus have a little moment together that is very unique in the MCU.
They're naked.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they really have a sex scene.
Well, no, Tony Stark rolled around in bed with a reporter in the first Iron Man movie, but it was a little playful. This was like full on, like on top of each other, like, where you're literally going, the two parents
it was
are going,
like
they didn't do this in Black Widow. But
hey, I advocated for it, and I pushed for it. I had a whole blog about it, and they didn't listen to me.
You were voting against it?
Oh no, for it in the Black Widow movie.
Oh, in the Black Widow.
Well,
so you were demonstrating out in front of the Disney studio with your little placard, your sandwich board.
Yeah, I had a table, a coffee, and a sign that said, "Put sex in the Black Widow movie. Prove me wrong."
Well, since the film was about trafficking girls, I don't think that was going to happen. I got an argument a bit with some of the expanded universe guys about one of the things that I have a problem with a lot of these films, and it goes into the DC films as well, is when you have these plots where the Earth is about to end, and you've got these other heroes in another franchise, and they just sit on their hands. Like I remember Thor: Dark World. Like London is about to be leveled. Where the fuck are the Avengers? Oh well, Steve Rogers is off, and Tony, and like this is one of those things where they sat. I mean, they address it. Like they sat out. When New York was attacked, they sat out the snap. But
why
there is that
not,
part. That part of me just goes like, come on.
Were they eliminated during the snap or not?
They didn't even address it. Like some of us were snapped out of existence
really good
too.
Question, because the question is would the snap affect these super beings or not?
It was all
should.
like,
are they above it?
All
or
life in the universe. Now, maybe as robots, they're
but they're
not,
robots.
I don't know.
But they should have addressed it, is what we're saying. They
should have said our sentient
lip service
construction. I don't know, but
Who knows?
Sometimes these films get a little too inside baseball, meaning that unless you really are schooled in Marvel history, I think that was kind of a tripping point for a lot of people accessing and appreciating WandaVision. Is there was a lot of stuff in that if you don't know what's going on outside of the MCU, the film's going to be a big question mark.
Yeah. My question for you guys then is this movie going to really matter? Like, I mean, is it going to, my point is that when I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, brand new characters, brand new mythology, only somewhat tangentially related to what was going on in, the Avengers part of everything. If not, I mean, I don't even think they were really affiliated with them. I think there was like one line where Kingo said like, oh yeah, like Thor used to follow me around. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know how that works. My brain hurts, like I don't know how that works.
There were more references to Batman and Superman than there were to
the
heroes of the world that they're in.
That's a really good point.
The DC comics exist in comic book form in the MCU.
Yeah.
Well, they actually established that in Spider-Man when Aunt May says to Tobey Maguire, "You're not Superman,
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, that was in the old. Well, let's not ever talk about Spider-Man, okay? I'm serious. Like we're not going to talk about Spider-Man.
To answer your question, I think the Eternals do play a part, but I think Marvel's biggest problem is they have so much content with the series that it's just got to be a nightmare to be a writer really writing in that world and it was probably before, but at least it was all heading just towards Infinity War Endgame. Now it's like you've got all of these younger characters coming up that probably going to tie in. You still got some people in the rearview mirror, and then you've got
Thor's still around.
You've got whatever threats, and it's not just one galaxy, it's the universe, and it's not just one universe, it's multiple universes, unless Doctor Strange, ties it all down into, one little knot and gets rid of all that craziness. But
I think to answer your question, Stephanie, will this movie matter? No. It was written to not matter, and it succeeded in not mattering, and now here we are.
It succeeded in not mattering.
It's sort of funny because it's like it was very, to me, it was very competently made with the material that was given. It was shot beautifully. The acting was good. There were good dramatic scenes. I thought that what is it, Brian Tyree Henry? He has 3 first names, and it's Fastos.
Yes,
I thought that he was great, and so there were some really special moments, in the movie, and the action is what it is. Like, it is CGI action, but it was plotted well. So I thought it was very competently made, and I think that it was on its own a fine movie. The issue is do we care? The issue is, okay, I don't have that connection to these people, and I don't really want to see them do more. That's me. That's, I'm not saying that that's anyone's fault. I'm just saying that was, I think, coming through just the origin of these characters in the comic books. It's like, okay, well, that's a book that I wouldn't have bought,
Yes. But can we use that as the jumping off point to rate this?
Yeah.
Cinema Craptaculus ratings.
We have a 3-tiered rating scale here. We have Cinema Craptaculus. This is run out and watch it. It's the Spider-Man 3 of Marvel movies. We have Craptaculus, which is pretty good on a Sunday afternoon, and then Utter Crap, which kind of speaks for itself.
The Spider-Man 3 of the Tobey Maguire
the
series.
Spider-Man 3 of the Marvel movies.
It's the Spider-Man 3 of the Spider-Man 3.
Yes. so funny. It's the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man 3.
He didn't have one.
Exactly. I'm gonna go. If you don't mind, I'll go. Because everyone, no surprise here, utter crap. I just did not. There were some enjoyable moments, but I ultimately, I think it comes down to what Steph asked. Does it matter? It did not to me. I just don't care. And I also want a shout out to Kingo, who played him.
Kamal Nanjiani.
Kamal Nanjiani.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I was close in pronouncing that right. Who got ripped for this movie? Famously, every PR story, I got ripped for this movie.
Yep.
And then not once shirtless.
Not once shirtless. Did he fight even?
He fought. He had his little like finger lasers. But
That
they didn't
is
show
so,
that sex scene.
I'm sorry, that is really sad to me because it's like you got ripped. You changed your entire body for finger laser.
Yeah, he went from a body like me to Captain America. And on the set, they must have been like, is anyone going to tell him he's not taking his shirt off?
Yeah,
No.
and fully clothed from like, the neck down, it might as well just put him in a ski suit.
Yeah.
So true.
So that leads me to my next point is if I've ever cast in one of these movies, I want to be cast as the fat character because I'd much rather just gain the weight than try to get ripped. I'm better at it.
Have it be for now.
Eternals, utter crap, pass.
I would say I would put it in the middle. I mean, I really didn't want to watch it. Not because I was like, oh no, this is going to be awful. It's more like, oh, I just have no interest. It's just not something that is calling to me. And I have to watch it now because we're reviewing it. And it's available, so I'll watch it. And then I watched it. And then I moved on with my life. And it just didn't, there wasn't anything that I took home with it other than that, some certain people are good actors, and I'm glad I got to see them perform, and that's the end of that.
I so want to put that on a poster of this. This says, Stephanie declares, it's available. I'll watch it.
It's available. So yeah, I give it just like the Craptaculus rating where it's just, it's fine. It's not going to change my life. If anything, it's made me sort of feel a little bit sad.
Sorry.
I know, just because it's just, like it was a lot of work went into it.
It is a lot of work.
A lot, and a lot of care, and a lot of dedication, and it shows. It's just, the material is just bleh,
I would agree with you guys. I'm probably, we need to have minuses and pluses because I'm kind of a Craptaculus minus, pretty good on an afternoon. I'm somewhat of a Marvel shill, expanded universe. We tend to be very Marvel supporting. So I think, Marvel films still are going to be entertaining in many respects. And that's probably why I was maybe a little more disappointed. I do agree that it had high, lofty goals that were hard to attain given sort of the complexity of the material. I disagree. I think the writing needed an extra pass. I don't mean to insult the writers who worked on it. I think there was just, I think Icarus must have said Cersei almost as many times as Jack and Rose said each other's name in Titanic. Cersei. And there was so much of, we've got to go find so-and-so. We've got to get the team together. It's not that hard. You watch Ocean's 11, and then you make your film after that. Because that film perfectly sets up, we need a team. We need how many? Oh, we go set out. We introduce each character. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, you need one more? I think we need one more. You get one more. And then you see how they gel together or not, and you have your fallouts or your arguments, and then you execute or reunite at the end. But this film kind of is in fits and starts like, they're like already into the third act, and they're like, we still need to find, Druig or whoever. I'm like, what? You don't have enough?
What?
The characters I've completely forgotten even were part of the team. Oh yeah, I guess they got to go find that person. So basically, I felt like it just needed to be tightened up. I think, the actors I think could have been directed to have a little more personality, a little more to do. There was a lot of standing around and then finding little bits, like you're at the dinner table. And I think that you got to do a little more than that. but I think you're right. I think it's visually very compelling. I also think it's important to see a lot of women in leadership roles. You know, the head of the team was Gemma Chan, and I think that's important. I think the Marvel Universe is trying to make sort of some changes in how their teams are led and who the big players are. And I think this film kind of gives you that opportunity in a variety of ways. And they even have a kid in the group.
There's a kid.
Yeah, there is a kid. And I couldn't tell if it was an older actor that looks young, or is it a young actor who's trying to be...
Yeah,
I didn't look up her...
age. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look her up either.
She's young, like 14, 15. I have no idea, but I know she's a Pinocchio, a real kid.
She's a real kid.
Haley Joel Osment in AI.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think that, one of the challenges a film like this has is that in the streaming world, there's so many shows like that have team-ups, like The Boys and The Umbrella Academy, and they have this advantage where each week they can develop characters and introduce new ones.
Yeah,
and this is
they
only
have
a 2-hour
13 episodes. Yeah, that's 13 hours that they could use, and this is only 2 or 2.5.
Oh yeah, this would have been a much better show.
Yeah, because then we could actually understand these people. I mean, also, what was the? I can't remember. Was the inciting incident Ajax being killed? Was that why they all had to get back together, or what?
There was no exciting incident in this.
Inciting.
Oh, and you know what her last words were, right?
What?
It was Achilles. And then someone said, Achilles isn't in this movie. Oh, you mean Icarus.
Do you mean Icarus?
I get it. And then that's how she
the
died.
monster eats her. Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember very much about why things happened in this
And
movie.
these monsters, I felt like, wait, did they escape from the underworld?
No, they were sent to Earth by the Celestials.
They were very... I got a problem with monsters.
No.
Everything's Stranger Things.
They're just out there in the universe hunting things.
But they're already there. They're supposed to already have been on Earth. But why are they not eating people?
See, all I can tell you, they were okay. So in 2,000 years ago, the Celestials, or in the 1500s, the Celestials or the Eternals killed all of them.
Oh, okay.
And then in the present day, the ice caps are melting, and that releases a bunch of them that were frozen like gorillas in The Simpsons, and I bring it all back around.
Oh, it comes full circle, baby. Woo! Yeah.
Dave Humphries is so smart.
All right.
My favorite character is Achilles. You mean Icarus?
Oh! Well, thanks for joining us on this Cinema Craptaculus journey. And don't forget that a good movie is just as easy to make as a hard... Wait, I totally fucked that up.
And this film describes our motto.
Thanks for joining us on this Cinema Craptaculus journey. This is Dave, and ever present with... I forgot who I was.
I don't know. This is Achilles. And ever present with me are Cersei.
You got to leave all this in.
And Jon Snow.
Gorillas!
Remember,
a bad movie is just as hard to make as a good one. It's just a lot easier to make fun of. This is Dave, and with me are...
Why are you doing that?
Just to be a dick.
I like
this
that.
Is all
I love that
in.
ending. Yeah, that all stays in. I love it.
Oh...
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema Craptaculus. If you'd like to hear all our other episodes, including our other shows like B-Sides, The Expanded Universe, and Terror Tunnel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Go to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, rate us. Give us a good review, we hope. It helps get the Craptaculus word out. And be sure to follow us on social media, @Craptaculus on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook, and you can find more content at cinemacraptaculus.com.